from Castle Goring, from Mickey and from me. Mickey sends to say lots of love to everybody. She is the sweetest girl on earth. But that is not going to stop me from plunging right in with her in my lap. So if I may, I will start off with R.W., who says, as a member of the Democratic Party, I understand that the Obamas dislike Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle dropped Michelle Obama's name, claiming that the former First Lady supported Meghan Markle. May I stop right there and observe that that is not only true, but that my understanding is that Michelle Obama was absolutely furious with Meghan Markle when she claimed to have had a luncheon meeting with her, when in fact it was a telephone meeting. So, embellishments clearly do not work that well with Michelle Obama. That's a problem if you're Meghan Markle, because she loves embroidery and absolutely adores it. And the more embroidery, the better, as she embellishes whatever wares she is hawking. Anyway, if I may stop interrupting myself, I will continue. Mrs. Obama was furious. Senator Chuck Schumer ain't going anywhere. Senator Gillibrand is silly enough to help Meghan, but she will end up Markled. I think Meghan Markle is going for Senator Feinstein's seat in California. Now, funny you should say that, because there is an alternative story doing the rounds, that the whole stuff about New York is yet again one of the blindsiders put out by the Sussex team to keep them relevant, keep them in the news, introduce the subject, throw sand in everybody's eyes, everybody's thoroughly confused, nobody knows what's going on, and then they actually slip in the real thing, which I have actually been told as well, is Diane Feinstein's seat, or Feinstein, I think is how she pronounces it, if I'm not mistaken. She's actually a very good friend of a very good friend of mine. But I hasten to add, Diane, I didn't get this from her. Please don't axe her. So, I think you're right, your information is accurate, and it could all be a blindsider because she is resident in California. You need to be resident. But New York has been mooted as well, not only possibly as a diversionary tactic, because remember, Meghan is very tactical. And Harry is used to blindsiding people. He grew up on the milk of an ace blindsider, because Diana used to say one of her objectives in life was to confuse the enemy. Well, Meghan and Harry believe in confusing everybody, not just the enemy. So, hopefully that has answered the question. Joan Fry says, Harry has to demand the review of the decision by the police regarding, of course, his security, because Joan Fry doesn't say that part of it, but I'm saying by the police for his security and the security of his wife and his two children, neither of whom is a prince and princess and therefore not entitled to security, although Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie don't get security at either, nor does the Princess Royal unless she is doing official engagements. Nor indeed does Prince Edward. Oh dear, so maybe being a prince and a princess actually doesn't have anything to do with it. Oh dear. Mickey, more flying pigs. We have to go on, get up and catch a few. Oh God, I tell you. The antics of these people. Anyway, Harry has to demand the review of the decision by the police in order to convince Netflix he's done all possible when he cannot get the extra footage they are expecting. When the Netflix deal was negotiated, Harry had not done the Oprah interview and had not caused the complete rift that now exists. Harry promised more than he can now deliver. He's expected to be an integral part of the celebrations and expected to be so as well. Now he'll be nowhere and has been virtually barred from all official events. Not good for his product. You know Joan Fry? It's comments like these and questions like these that make me realize that when people say that our YouTube community is the most intelligent and sophisticated around, I have to say, even though I'm not a YouTube expert because I don't look at any of the other channels, because I don't wish to be influenced. I wish to be impartial and independent. Nevertheless, several people have made the comment, and I have to say, I think the level of observation and the level of input is very high indeed. Yes, Harry promised the sky, and he's going to be in a position to deliver hot air and not much else beside. You know, Harry and Meghan seemed to believe that they were so grand and so important and so popular that all they needed to do was leave the dinky little royal family because they were bigger than the royal family. Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up now. I'm Norma Desmond. I'm the biggest star that ever existed, if only in my fantasies. Well, it hasn't panned out that way, has it? Harry needs to explain away his loss of position. He's going to need to explain to all the people to whom he promised the sky and who he's now delivering hot air, that because, the content is going to be pathetic. Rushing around New York with 5 bystanders and 50 security, and a broken down governor's permission, etc., etc. Very pathetic. Not of the standard and elevation that is required for Netflix to justify the tremendous amount of money they are alleged to have signed up for and didn't, according to my information. Is he going to be on the balcony at Buckingham Palace? Oh dear. Mickey, you need to tell Marty, what does that flying pig say? It's a very, very resourceful way of saying, we can't come to the United Kingdom because we don't have security. I offered to pay for the security, and there's no security because they wouldn't accept my offer. Oh dear. Because Harry and Meghan are so in demand. They're so under threat. They're being absolutely hounded by the paparazzi. Absolutely hounded. Absolutely. That's why every little picture of them is set up. Mark Frew says, Harry wants to get the title of very important person. That would entitle him to protection anywhere in the world and by default, his wife and children. Also, I think there will be a chapter or 3 in his book regarding all of this. What do I think? Yes, well, he's going to need to pad that out with something, so I'm sure it's going to be how he was victimized by a cruel establishment and a wicked, wicked royal family and ghastly, ghastly police, because they were all racist. They were all racist because his lily white children who aren't a prince and princess were in danger of going to be kidnapped by Martians, taken to Venus, then catapulted into Uranus. We believe it, of course, we believe it. You know, Harry feels entitled and made it clear in the Oprah interview that he feels entitled to protection because he was born the second son of the heir to the British throne. Remember what he said? Daddy, mean daddy, nasty daddy, cut off my money, and I have to pay for my own security. And the threat remains the same. What threat, Harry? I should think people would pay to return you rather than keep you if they were ill-advised enough to take you. What threat? I mean, listening to you and Meghan for more than 2 hours would drive anybody to desperation. So they would either lock you in a room and throw away the key, or maybe actually drop you where you belong, down in the cesspit. Very unattractive, but I think very appropriate. Robert Lalsobel says, Lady C, we can't be hiring out, and this is very droll, I've got to tell you. It's not a question, but it is a wonderfully droll comment. Lady C, we can't be hiring out our precious Metropolitan Police officers to any old Tom, Dick, or Harry. Robert Lalsobel, you're absolutely right. First of all, the Metropolitan Police are not for hire to every or any Tom, Dick, or Harry, and they're definitely not for hire to any just Harry, not even Prince Harry. Patrick T says, Dear Lady C, what do you think about Shukri Walker, who has bravely stepped forward as a witness and is willing to testify that she saw Prince Andrew at the Tramp nightclub with a young girl? She has nothing to gain from it. Well, Patrick T, thanks for the question. Thanks for the observation. I'm sorry. I don't know if you're a friend of hers or not. But if you are, I can't agree that she has nothing to gain from it. She has an awful lot to gain from it. First of all, she has the attention to gain from it. And I'll tell you, an awful lot of people are hungry for a lot more attention than they receive on a daily basis. So that's one thing she will benefit from, attention. Another thing she'll benefit from is money, because the press will be all over her like a rash with open checkbooks and unending debit cards to flush out any remembrance that she has, whether valid or otherwise, will be quite beside the point. Because I don't know if you haven't figured it out yet, but I've certainly figured it out a very long time ago, that a good 80% of what you read in the press is dross. It is absolute rubbish. Some of it is dangerous rubbish. And they will be milking her for information and her life and her boyfriends, and she has indicated that she was trafficked. Is this going to be a repetition of the juror in the Ghislaine Maxwell case who said, oh, he wasn't, or knew nothing, had no connection to whatever, to certain forms of abuse? Then, in the jury room, came clean about it, and had another juror as well come clean about it. I'm sorry, the positive application of the law requires scrupulousness. Not only moral scrupulousness, but conscionable scrupulousness from people. She has said that she was trafficked. She already, therefore, has a reason to make an awful lot of money, get an awful lot of attention. Now, I'm not saying, incidentally, that she hasn't been trafficked, and I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve sympathy if she has been trafficked. What I am saying is, 20 years later, what evidence is she going to be able to give that she saw Prince Andrew in tramp with a young girl? If she can describe what he had on and what the young girl had on, and there are independent witnesses to corroborate it, and she describes what the young girl looked like, she would have a suspiciously good memory that it would behoove anybody to not listen to. Most people cannot remember with any accuracy if it's something momentary, especially if it's something strikingly momentary. What happened 20 minutes ago, much less 20 days, 20 weeks, 20 months, and certainly not 20 years. Her only evidence will be able to be that she saw somebody who she thought was Prince Andrew, and he was with a girl who seemed young, but if she was in tramp, had to be over the age of 18, so had to be over the age of consent, otherwise she couldn't get into tramp. What other evidence does she have to offer? Is she going to be able to say that it was definitely Prince Andrew and that it was definitely Virginia Roberts? I doubt that very much. I'm awfully sorry. With the best will in the world, I would be very skeptical of anything anybody said who didn't know either of them very well and didn't write it down immediately. Elizabeth Carlyle says, "Hi, Lady C. This is a witch hunt on a global scale. That's why they have targeted Prince Andrew. I couldn't agree more. Royal or not, what a horrible world we live in. Yes, it can be horrible, but it can also be wonderful. Let's not forget that many people are wonderful." Thank you, Lady C. You're doing a fantastic job at highlighting it. God bless. I am delighted well, that's the wrong word. I'm not delighted. I am duty bound, I think, to always, wherever possible, in a situation like this, make a contribution that is hopefully humane, fair, conscionable, and valid. It is extraordinary that with Virginia Giuffre having been a fully paid up member of the Epstein decadence and debauchery for either 2 or 3 years, I forget at the moment which one it was, and the countless girls that must have passed through the portals of the various residences that she took them to, and the hundreds of thousands of dollars that would have exchanged hands on a regular basis, that we have only a handful of girls, and that Virginia Giuffre is highly suspect. She is an admitted perjurer and liar. The whole thing is disturbingly not only political, but philosophically unsound. Because you have decent people who are grand, decent people who are humble, decent people in between, and you have awful people who are grand, awful people who are humble, and awful people who are in between. And incidentally, I am using the word humble in the old-fashioned connotation that does not describe attitude or conduct, but describes worldly circumstances. So maybe I should rephrase it to, you have overprivileged rats and underprivileged rats. And just because somebody is an underprivileged rat doesn't mean that somebody who they are accusing who is overprivileged is a rat. I will also point out that what people do not seem to realize is that Virginia Roberts is a trust fund girl. Virginia Roberts has portrayed herself as somebody who was disadvantaged. She was left a trust fund by her very well-off grandmother. I think people need to start to factor into the equation the fact that this is a girl who has misrepresented herself in every way, shape, or form. And off the evidence of her conduct, I would have to say that she's right up there with the Meghan Markles of this world in terms of truthful scrupulousness. Queen's Martini. I default. Lady Colin Campbell, question. Have you heard that Epstein allegedly loaned Fergie, the Duchess of York, money? She's not Fergie, the Duchess of York, honey. She's Fergie. She's actually not Fergie at all. She's Sarah, comma, Duchess of York. She's not the Duchess of York. Do you know anything about that? Yes, I do. And what you heard is absolutely right. Jeffrey Epstein loaned, in quotes, Sarah a significant sum of money. I know that the sum of $15,000 has been mentioned, but little birdies who have whispered in my ear point out that 15,000 is the tip of the iceberg, and that according to them, the reason why Andrew had to get on a plane, cross the Atlantic, and sever relations with Epstein in the civilized way that he did wasn't because he was being the gentleman that he ought to have been and would like us to believe that he was, but because he had to soft soap the issue, and that indeed Epstein forgave the debt. Epstein would not have forgiven the debt. Epstein would have called in the debt had Prince Andrew not gone to New York and terminated the friendship with the decorousness that he did. That is what little birdies have said. And since you have brought it up, I will chirp along with them, because it does actually help to explain why Prince Andrew got on a plane and effectively compromised himself in the eyes of the world by severing relations with Epstein with the decency that he did. In fact, I personally think, being something of a traditionalist in many respects, that he did the absolutely right thing and he should have done it even if money wasn't involved. But my understanding is that his incentive was to get Sarah forgiven the debt. Dawn Kelly says, hello, Lady C and Mickey. Well, Mickey's right hair curled up and Mickey is snoozing. Thank you for your vlogs and speaking the truth. I may be missing something, but my question is in two parts. First, why is Prince Andrew's case in New York? Wonderful question. She is Australian and he a British citizen. That's her observation, Dawn Kelly. Second, why hasn't Virginia Giuffre been charged with sex trafficking? Another excellent question, and I will resume her comments. She is just as guilty as Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, she's certainly by her own account guilty. Ghislaine Maxwell denied the charges. Virginia Roberts has admitted that she was a procuress. So I would say, especially as how it is possible that Ghislaine Maxwell will have to be retried because of the antics of two of the jurors, that at this moment, Virginia Giuffre is more guilty than Ghislaine Maxwell, because Virginia Giuffre has admitted guilt. Ghislaine Maxwell hasn't. Oh, then she says sorry. Wishing you and yours health, happiness, love and laughter. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, New York is the chosen venue because that is where the judge can be controlled, the press can be influenced and manipulated, and through them, the public. If this case had been tried in Britain, it would have been sub judice. In England and Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland, we have the concept of sub judice. That means that the press have to be very careful what they report upon once a case is being heard. Now, this is not a criminal case. This is a civil case. So there would be greater flexibility in terms of the reportage. Nevertheless, the rules of sub judice kick in once a case is going to court, and the press cannot behave the way they do in America, where I am absolutely appalled, I have to tell you, that trials are done by media, and, it's mob rule, because the media are a mob, and they bay for the blood of anybody that they wish to set up as a victim. I don't know how it is possible to get a fair trial in the United States of America when you have such a vicious, vitriolic press, always taking positions and judging the case before either judge and or jury have had a chance to decide on the merits of the case. They create an atmosphere that is akin to a witch hunt. That's what witch hunts are all about. And it is deeply, deeply dangerous and very wrong. There is no justification for it. It is a flaw that should be rectified. Freedom of the press does not mean that the law should be held to ransom by the prejudices of a mob. Why is it not being tried in Australia? Well, Australia has no jurisdiction at all, because although she's living there, her allegations do not concern Australia, so it couldn't be in Australia. People are normally tried in the jurisdiction where something happened. The natural locus would be Britain. But of course, in Britain, Prince Andrew would get a fair trial. He has already, in New York, it's been shown by Louis A. Kaplan that there is little or no likelihood of him getting a fair trial unless Mr. Kaplan decides that he's going to take up jogging off the spiral of the Empire State Building. Let's put it that way. Pamela Lou 208 says, "Hello, Lady C. I love listening to your vast knowledge on anything and everything." My dear, my knowledge is very limited on many things. I may have some knowledge about some things, a little knowledge about other things, and quite a lot of knowledge about some things, but I certainly don't know everything, and I don't pretend to know everything. But it's sweet of you to think that I'm so knowledgeable. Thank you. Although I beg to disagree with you on your thoughts about the photo in question. Oh, my dear, aren't you diplomatic? Get in the compliment before you get in the slap. I love it. Pamela Lou, you're great. You imply that it was taken at Virginia's request so that she could, and apparently did, send a copy of the photo to her parents. Actually, she sent it to her aunt. Well, if that was the case, and Prince Andrew's claim and denial of ever meeting Virginia, and that photo must be fabricated, it's blown out of the water. I feel that the prince was taken aback when the photo was taken without prior knowledge, and it was orchestrated by Epstein as a weapon for future blackmail. Perhaps the prince looked slightly uncomfortable in the photo. I wonder why. Well, I have to tell you, I have seen Andrew at many events where he's being photographed, and he always looks slightly awkward. So from that point of view, that means nothing. Also, I now speak from experience, personal experience. I am often being asked to be photographed with people who I have never met before, most likely never will meet again, or I've met them glancingly, and I step up to the plate because I think it's the right thing to do. But a lot of people, most people in the public eye, are not quite as willing to be forthcoming as I am. There is a degree of reluctance on their part, but if they are well-mannered, they will oblige, even though they prefer not to have the photograph. Now, there are various versions of that photograph and how it came into existence, and whether it is even a genuine photograph or not. The original, according to Virginia Giuffre, is, if I remember correctly, in some lockup somewhere, but she can't afford to get to it because she's only worth tens of millions of dollars. So I suppose for her to get that crucial bit of evidence, maybe she'll need to be worth $150 million, because if she's worth tens of millions of dollars and she's not able to get that photograph and has pleaded that the reason why she can't get it is financial duress, one has to ask oneself, how valid a reason is that? And why is she pleading anything? Why doesn't she simply get the photograph and hand it over the original? And the suspicion is that the reason why she hasn't handed over the photograph is that it has indeed been doctored. Now, I know very little about photography, but I do know that people doctor photographs all the time. I'm not saying that she doctored it, but I am saying that she is preventing inspection and examination of the photograph on spurious, indeed completely untrue grounds, because somebody who's worth as much money as her can certainly get a photograph out of lockup or wherever it is. There's another disturbing feature about that photograph. Now, let us remember that that photograph, its existence is Virginia Roberts. Virginia Roberts is the one who had the photograph, showed it to her aunt, sold it to Sharon Church of the Mail on Sunday for, if I remember correctly, £40,000. That one photograph she sold for £40,000. But there's a very disturbing feature about that photograph, because Virginia Roberts has claimed that there were 4 people present. There was herself, Prince Andrew, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Jeffrey Epstein, who took the photograph. Well, Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Ghislaine Maxwell is unavailable. Prince Andrew has said he doesn't remember the photograph. He's not even sure he's ever met the woman. But she asserts that Jeffrey Epstein took that photograph. Jeffrey Epstein was well over 6 feet tall. Look at where the flash of that camera is, and you will see that the person who took that photograph is very short. Look at the photograph. Look at where the flash is in relation to the window. There are accurate measurements capable of being taken from the placement of that flash in that photograph. Now, I'm not saying that Jeffrey Epstein didn't take the photograph. I am saying that anomalies exist, and it is highly suspicious that such a crucial piece of evidence has been made unavailable by the accuser of several different people. I hope that goes some way to explaining. Now, insofar as her parents are concerned, she sent the photograph to her aunt. She didn't send it to her parents. And it is possible that the photograph is genuine. It's also possible that Prince Andrew doesn't remember the photograph being taken. Why would he? It was 20 years ago. I don't remember every photograph that's been taken of me. I often meet people who say, "Oh, hi Lady C, nice to see you again. Do you remember me? I met you at such and such and you were really great. You allowed me to take a photograph with my daughter Tracy or whatever." Of course I don't remember. I mean, I can't remember everything. And if you do remember everything, it's usually an indication that you're a liar. Suzanne Hall says, given that the result of the civil case has been decided regardless of the evidence, couldn't agree more. I have been wondering if Prince Andrew's legal team should just present everything and accept the verdict, then sue Virginia Roberts for defamation in an English court. Let all the dirt, prejudice and political manoeuvring come out and get any damages she may have been awarded taken back. Is that possible? At the very least, the world will then hear the truth. Novel approach. Great ploy. But you need to sue within a finite period in this country. You can't decide you're going to sue 6 years, 18 months, 20 years after an event. This is, thank God, still not the United States of America, where laws are mucked around with and are embellished for the political convenience of whoever wants to have a go at whomever. Also, Andrew would have a big problem because we live in a very liberal society, and it's not really defamatory for an 18-year-old prostitute or a 17-year-old prostitute to allege that she went to bed with a 40-year-old good-looking guy who was regarded as one of the most eligible bachelors in the world at the time, and that she managed to seduce him, and he didn't know she was a prostitute. He didn't know she was being paid $15,000. It's not defamatory. I mean, he could make a case for it being defamatory, but I don't think he'd get very many damages. Although, if he went for something else, because if it is proven to be a falsehood, then it is possible that he could go for something else. But defamation, I don't think so. Not in the world we live in. Oh, it just couldn't happen. And certainly not in Britain, because our courts, thank God, are still regulated rather more pristinely than they clearly are in the United States of America. And I hope I'm not offending Americans, because, as I've said before, I partly went to school in America. My sisters are American. My nieces and nephew are American. Many of my greatest friends are American. I love America. I love Americans. And it actually distresses me to see what, in my lifetime, has become of the American body politic and the American legal system. I think America is now maybe in BC 65 in terms of the Roman Republic. There are discomforting parallels between the United States of America and the ancient Republic of Rome in the last days of the Republic. Susan Morris says, Lady C, why has Prince Andrew not been acquitted if all this information has been found out and handed over? I think this woman is a scammer out for gain and shows no responsibility for her ruthless actions. Well, there, my dear, I would say I have to agree with you. In my opinion, she is an ace operator and she has absolutely no scruples and her no sense of responsibility. I think she is truly appalling, going off her conduct alone. And don't tell me, anybody, please, that if she was the victim of child abuse, that means that she has a right to be a reprehensible and amoral con artist and scammer and whatever else you want to decide is perfectly justified. I don't for a second buy it. I don't. Many people who have suffered far worse than she did and got none of the recompense that she did, because she has got not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but millions of dollars in recompense. And as a teenager was getting $4,000 a week, according to the reports. $4,000 a week as a teenager. That's plenty of recompense. What about all those poor, genuinely innocent girls who have had terrible things happen to them and have never degenerated? Or if they did, they dusted themselves off, they got themselves on their feet, and they have become decent, upstanding, and moral human beings. They deserve credit. I'm afraid I don't think for one nanosecond that she deserves any credit for anything except being exposed for what she is, which I will refrain from saying further. I think my sentiments are quite clear enough. However, Susan Morris, this is not a criminal case. My understanding is that they're desperate to get him to America and turn it into a criminal case, or entrap him from in England for it to be converted into a criminal case. But at the moment, it's only a civil case. He can't be acquitted in a civil case. He's committed no crime. He's charged with no crime. He can't be acquitted civilly. However, the case is a stitch-up, and that's why it has been brought where it has been brought in New York by a partisan judge. It is being driven by a partisan attorney. It is being judged and adjudged by a partisan media. They don't seem to get it. It doesn't matter that he's a prince and that she is a phony, disadvantaged girl. She's not disadvantaged. She's a trust fund babe. She's a trust fund babe. You can't be the beneficiary of a trust fund and be disadvantaged. Which bit of justice and decency don't people who hop on stupid, sensationalistic, disgusting, reprehensible bandwagons understand? I mean, it just appalls one that people can be so completely unscrupulous, dumb, stupid, partisan. I mean, I don't have to like someone to know that if they are innocent, they should not be charged with a crime. If they're innocent or likely to be innocent, they should not be pilloried for an offence they might not have committed. They shouldn't be dragged through the courts and sued if they have done nothing wrong, but the person who is accusing them is a self-confessed criminal. The woman is a self-confessed criminal. She has committed serious crimes. She has committed the crime of perjury. She has committed the crime of procuring minors. She has committed the crime of prostitution. Which bit of the woman is a criminal who has simply not been charged with crimes don't people get? So Sandra D, well, I'm sure that must be a nom de plume, because Sandra Dee was a very famous actress when I was a child. Sorry, she was married to Bobby Darin, and they were a sweet young couple, and maybe this is Sandra Dee's granddaughter. I don't think so, but anyway, Sandra Dee says, Jufra was clearly a troubled teen, but that does not excuse Andrew's gross behaviour. I just don't understand why you are so vehement in your defence of Andrew. I'm vehement in my defence of Andrew because, first of all, he has stated categorically that he didn't do what he's been accused of doing. That's number one. If I disbelieved him, I would take a different view, but I do not disbelieve him. I know enough about Prince Andrew privately that I'm not prepared to go into publicly. That means that I have sound reason for disbelieving the accusation. That's one thing. Another thing is, why should Prince Andrew pay the price for having run across a troubled teen if he did nothing? And I've got news for you. Even if he did what she accused him of doing, it's nothing unlawful, absolutely nothing unlawful. Trafficked, she got on that plane of her own volition with her parents' consent. She was under the age of 18. She was over the age of consent for Congress, but she was under the age of consent for traveling without her parents' consent. Why isn't she suing her parents? Trafficked. Excuse me, she can't have been trafficked if she was doing it voluntarily. Trafficked is when you are doing it involuntarily. She wasn't duped. She wasn't duped. Check up her history. She had accused 3 separate men by that time of serious criminal offences, all of whom, it has to be said, turned out to be innocent. So now she's on number 4. I don't for a second believe it. You know, I'm not dumb enough to think that a liar who is an acknowledged liar, who stands to gain millions, and not only stands to gain millions, but has already gained millions, and needs to pose as a victim to keep her sad, rather sorry, the thing I'm sitting upon, out of prison, doesn't have a strong motive to lie. I think she's lying through her back teeth. Not only do I think she's lying through her back teeth, there are very many indications of how she has lied and is continuing to lie. And what I don't get is, why are people so prejudiced? I can get if they're dumb, but I can't get intelligent people who are so prejudiced that this is, they think, decided along class lines. He's a prince, she's a peasant. She's not a peasant. She's a trust fund babe. I'm going to read out something to you that somebody sent, because I think I'd like to end not with what I'm saying, but with what one of my many wonderful viewers has sent me. SLS says, in a statement issued on Friday, the 4th of November 2016, Paul G. Castle, and Bradley J. Edwards, lawyers for Virginia Roberts, the woman who alleged she was forced to have sex with Adam Dershowitz and others, said they, quote unquote, acknowledged that it was a mistake to have filed sexual misconduct accusations against Mr. Dershowitz. The sexual misconduct accusations made in all public filings are hereby withdrawn. Dershowitz also withdraws his accusations that Edwards and Castle acted unethically. Those were the lawyers that Alan Dershowitz accused of behaving unethically because they knew that Virginia Roberts was lying. And they would have continued litigating on her behalf had their sorry backsides not been put on the line by Alan Dershowitz. When their sorry backsides were being put on the line, they somehow managed to magically get some morality and see some sense. But until then, not a hope. I am outraged at injustice, no matter where it takes place and who is responsible for it. And I don't care that this is a prince, rather unattractive in many ways, prince, and that he is up against a trust fund babe who has used her every advantage to muscle and hustle her way to a continuing life of privilege. She was born into a life of mini privilege. She has slept her way and lied and cheated her way into a life of maximum privilege. And you want me to be an apologist for her? That mad I'm not. And I've got news for you. If you have 2 grains of sense in your head, you won't be either. And on that note, I will say, I am completely unapologetic in my support of Prince Andrew until such time as I see absolute proof that he is lying and that the liar who has accused him is speaking the truth. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and keep the questions and comments coming in. Remember, this can't be done without you. God bless and goodbye.